welcome back to our channel. Just a bit of background, I'm Becca and I am on the graduate scheme in audit at one of the big four accounting firms in London. So in this video I just wanted to talk you through a bit about my experience on the graduate scheme, what I get up to day to day and any tips as well, so I hope you enjoy. Firstly, what do you do day to day? Well, usually as like a junior, so a first year, you'll do lots of the easier testing, so things like cash, accounts payable, accounts receivable, OPEX, that kind of thing, maybe PPE. But basically each of those testings, there usually is like a set template to follow, and it's quite easy because each one of them in the different companies that you'll be auditing are usually quite similar as well. Obviously there are minor differences in all, but they're quite similar. So for example, for cash, you'll have to request things like bank statements and bank confirmations. So you may have to talk to like third parties, but also like requesting to the client as well. So there's a bit of communication between like the client and you there in your first year, and I've found that quite a lot. Lots of emails, but obviously in normal times, because I've only been working in COVID times, in normal times you'll be in the office and you'll literally just go up to the client and ask them for certain things. And then also there's lots of communication within your team obviously as well. Obviously as a junior they don't really expect you to know absolutely everything or much at all, to be honest, because especially like for my firm, you don't actually have to have an accounting background at all to be doing the audit graduate scheme. So they don't really expect you to know too much, to be honest. So there's a lot of guidance there, and that's why it's better to do the easier testing that you can like do multiple times for different clients and definitely learn how to get it right. So like I mentioned, day to day there's lots of emails between your team and to the client and third parties as well. You'll also be using Excel so much, and I'll talk a bit more about like the different tips and stuff I've got for Excel if you're not an Excel whiz. And then you'll probably be on calls a lot of the time as well with different members of your team. So I've especially found that as a junior, because obviously like I said, you don't really know what you're doing most of the time, so you need someone to like guide you and teach you, and usually that's the assistant manager or the senior associate, or sometimes the manager. It just depends how busy they are. Regarding when you do stuff, it all depends on deadlines. So they could be literal legal deadlines of when like reports need to be published, or they could be deadlines for different reviews. So usually the review process for my work has been an assistant manager's helped me do it, and then a manager will review, then a partner will review, or a senior manager potentially, depends how important that specific piece of work is, and then also potentially like someone external might review as well. As I said, you're working towards deadlines, and the deadline that I'm sure loads of you have heard of is busy season. So busy season is basically between January and March. It obviously completely depends on the client and when their year end is, but usually for most of them they have a December 31st year end, which is actually my birthday as well. But they usually end at December 31st, and that's why busy season is straight after that, because you're basically like preparing everything to make sure that everything's accurate in order to publish the report. So at my firm, in busy season you're not allowed to take any annual leave, but I think that's quite common as well. So between January and March you're not usually allowed to take any annual leave, just because they need like all hands on deck. There's usually on the bigger clients a lot more people than you usually would have in like the core team on the client. You need to really make sure that you organise your time well, because obviously people are working really long hours and you can get sucked into the routine of just working non-stop and not taking any time for yourself. So make sure obviously you're exercising and you're keeping like your time organised and not just working all day every day, which I think some people do end up doing, especially with working from home. There isn't like that break of like going to the office and going home. So yeah, definitely if you are in busy season, make sure you take time for yourself. But that's not to say, you know, you have to work your 9 to 5 and then you switch off and refuse to do anything else, because realistically, I mean, it's part of being an auditor, I think anyway. For those like few weeks of busy season that it's like really, really busy, it is all hands on deck and you need to help your team out. So for me, there was only probably about a week and a half of like really tough work where I had to work some weekends. This is completely as a first year, by the way. Obviously, the higher you get, the more responsibility you have and the more you might have to do. But I do think you just have to manage your time in the best way that you can. So I started in January, which was busy season, and at the very start I actually had college for accounting and assurance. So they're probably the first 2 exams that you'll sit. So speaking of college, as an accounting college, so I'm doing the ACA exam, and that's through ICAEW. And you can Google what all those mean. I'll put the links to them in the description for you as well. So I haven't been to college yet, but I've heard that college is just like uni again, as in like you all go into the classroom together with like loads of people your age and your peers. And you basically learn accounting or tax. So the exams are split out into 3. So you've got certificate level, which are the first 6, then professional level, and then advanced. So certificate are the easier ones, so that's usually the ones that you sit first, and then you've got professional, which you usually do in like chunks, so you'll do like 3 and then 3, but again, completely depends on the firm. And the timings that you're doing them as well, because with professional they can only be sat in like certain times. So I'm going to do mine in the December sitting. Some firms as well may offer different routes. It completely depends on the firm. Some like you all to do the same, some give you the opportunity to do different ones. So I could be completely wrong with this, but I think that KPMG like you to do the like more intensive route, and Deloitte give you the option to do like intensive or normal. And the same with EY as well, I think, and PwC. But yeah, it completely depends on your firm basically, and what section you're in. So the intensive route is usually where you do all of your exams in the first year. So you maybe work for busy season, if that, and it's basically like another year of uni. And then obviously to become an accountant, you also need to do work experience. So you'll do those for the next 2 years. So you still qualify at the same time. Or you can do the normal route, which is what I'm doing, where you do like some work, some exams, some work, some exams, and you just go between both. And I quite like that because I think it's a good break, to be honest. But I think you can change between, like if you were on intensive and it was too much for you, you could go to the normal route as well in some firms. But yeah, like I said, completely depends. And finally, some advice. First piece of advice is to ask questions. Literally, I ask questions about everything. You need to really make sure you're understanding why you're doing something, because then that can help you like spot any errors or any issues, and also why you're asking for certain pieces of evidence from the client, or why you're asking certain questions to people. I think it really helps you with your development if you're understanding them, because then in the future you might be having to show a junior how to do the piece of work that you've been doing, and obviously it really helps if you've got a better understanding. And I think it actually helps with your college work as well, because a lot of the work you'll be doing in college work will overlap. I mean, that's the whole point of it, right? Okay, the second tip is to do some Excel work before, and by that I mean you can do free Excel courses online or through your university, or just generally look up how to do the main things on Excel. So the main things I'd say are pivot tables, Vlookups or Xlookups if you're a bit more advanced, index match as well, that's another like variation of Vlookups and Xlookups, like filtering or like sums and things like that, and ifs. I keep saying so many different things and it's probably a lot of information at once, but yeah, I think the main ones, pivot tables and Vlookups, are what I use most that I maybe didn't use before. So definitely look those up. But saying that, I literally Google absolutely everything when it comes to Excel. If you think there's an easier way of doing something, there definitely will be. Either ask your team, someone who's maybe done it before, or Google and literally just type into Google exactly what you're trying to do. And then there's pretty much always guidance for it. But saying that, I also had an Excel training right at the beginning of my course, and that was really handy as well. It taught me a lot of different things. I mean, I'd done Excel before, but not to that extent, so yeah, that was really handy. So I think definitely look at Excel, and also read up a bit on accounting generally if you've not done it before. Obviously, as an accountant, you're like checking people's financial statements, but you're also checking things called internal controls as well. So that's basically like business processes and the way that the company does things. So it's really good to have like a basic understanding of, you know, how the company works. So for example, if it's a listed company, like on the stock exchange, they'll have certain requirements that unlisted ones won't. Definitely interesting to read up on all the different things and all the different sections, and I'd always Google a section before I started it. Unless it's maybe like cash, which is kind of self-explanatory. Definitely Google your different sections before you start and make sure you have a really good understanding, especially for things that are maybe a bit more complicated, like Goodwill or puts and calls. They're really complicated, and I think unless you've been to college and been taught them, or at university been taught them, it's quite difficult to understand. And my final piece of advice would be just to try your best. I've spoken to like my manager and senior manager about this, and they just said, you know, as first years, you don't even have to do an accounting qualification before, so they don't really expect you to know that much. They just expect you, you know, to want to learn, to ask questions, you know, to develop, and when they tell you things, to, you know, fully understand them and ask questions if you don't, to not necessarily revise, but make sure that you know, understand what they're saying and go back to refer to things afterwards. People have this preconception that it's, you know, really boring and it's all maths and it's really dull. And to be honest, it might not be the most exciting job to some people, but I actually quite enjoy it. It's a lot of Excel, I really enjoy Excel, and there's a lot of communication as well, and you get some really good socials. So yeah, I definitely recommend it from my perspective anyway. And it's a great qualification to get, your accounting qualification, and it only takes 3 years, which again might seem like a lot, but the qualification obviously stays with you for life. So that's all from me. I really hope that's helped. If you've got any questions, please leave them in the comment section below, and check out our other videos as well. So I share this channel with my best friend Sophie, who's a lawyer, so if you're interested in that route as well, make sure you check it out. We'll see you guys soon. Bye!